Brian Mitchell.
And I am Joseph Nicholson.
And this is Rotten 90s Movies. And this week's Rotten 90s movie is...
Flatliners.
Yes, directed by Joel Schumacher, 1990.
Yep.
And Murray, our producer, can you tell us what kind of budget this had, how well it did?
Yep, I can just find that.
It's produced by Michael Douglas, incidentally.
Oh, was it? Oh, right, yeah.
Yep.
There you go.
It had a budget of 26 million.
Yeah.
And it made a worldwide gross of 61 million.
No?
It was it was a fairly big hit, wasn't it?
Reasonably big.
Reasonable.
I saw this at the cinema the year it came out. I did.
I didn't see it, and this is the first time I've seen it. But I avoided it because I thought it looked lousy. And
I remember being very... I remember thinking, what a swizz when I saw it, because, of course, the premise of the film, ladies and gentlemen, is the characters die. They're medical students who shock each other into their hearts stopping, so they can find out what lies beyond the veil.
Yeah.
But you don't really get any of that, do you?
No, not much. No. So just before we go into the plot, who are the cast in this?
The cast in this we have Kiefer Sutherland, who is saying the role of Nelson,
yes,
a young, cool medical student.
Yeah, very very driven.
Very driven. And then we have Julia Roberts.
That's right.
Doing a slightly old accent in this
as another medical. They're all medical
another
students.
Driven medical student.
Then we have set at some kind of like seeming Catholic hospital or something, I'd say.
Yes.
So
then we have Kevin Bacon as a maverick
medical student.
He's called Mike in this film, I think. David, sorry.
Well, yeah, interchangeable.
And then we have Oliver Platt as a slightly more pretentious.
Yes, thinks he's a genius.
Bow tie wearing.
He wears a bow tie. That's the level of subtlety that you have in this movie, and he's constantly dictating to himself his memoirs, which he says are going to be called The Genesis of a Surgeon or something like that. You know.
And then we have which Baldwin is it?
William Baldwin.
William Baldwin.
Yeah, the least memorable of all the Baldwins. Zeppo of the Baldwins family.
The Ringo of the Baldwins. Who says the role of a dirty, filthy horn dog of a medical student who's always having it away with ladies and filming
them without their knowledge.
Yes,
which would put him in hot water, wouldn't it? Now, certainly.
Well, back then, I suppose.
Yeah,
probably.
Would have. I mean, Chuck Berry didn't get away with it, did he?
And in fact, he's got a whole row of the tapes with the names written on them.
That's right.
In his apartment, hasn't he?
Which, a bit of a giveaway.
Yeah.
You know, should have put Country File on them.
No one
code. You know, Touch of Frost.
Of course, you have it the other way round, don't you? You have Touch of Frost, but you've written women's names on there.
So yes, that's the main.
That's the main cast.
That's it. You don't really see.
In fact, this is one of those films where there's the main cast and hardly anybody else. There's the odd hospital orderly or nurse who turns up, but pretty much no one else.
Yeah,
really.
just the various figures who appear in their sort of kind of waking nightmares. Yeah. Really, we'll come to that. So, what's the plot?
The plot is Nelson, played by Kiefer Sutherland, has an idea that he wants to find the next great step forward in medicine, doesn't he?
Yes.
Really, which he reckons, and I don't know why he thinks this. He reckons he's finding out if there's a God or an afterlife or not.
Yeah. There's a running idea through it that Julia Roberts' character is constantly conducting research into people who've had near-death experiences.
We see someone who, all these people who see a tunnel of light, or they feel the presence of a god or something.
There was a lot of talk about this at the time, I remember. And sort of like the out-of-body experience as well, of like hovering and go moving above your body and going down a corridor and going through to tunnel of light and meeting Jesus, that kind of thing. And she's obsessed with researching about this. And for some reason they all have an interest in this,
well, do they? I don't think the Kevin Bacon character is he's the sceptical atheist of the group, isn't he?
Yeah. So for some reason, Nelson wants to do this experiment. He's found that he can he can die. Actually, make himself dead for a minute.
What they do is they lower the body temperature, his stomach, and then they shock his heart into beating irregularly.
Yeah.
So it stops.
Yes.
And then brain death
Yes.
takes hold, and then they wait a minute so you can experience it. Then they shock him back
into life.
to life.
Yeah. That's the idea. And he wants to do this so that he can see what happens when you have this out-of-body experience, whether it's true or not. See, it's a fairly extreme experiment to perform on oneself.
Oh, no,
makes Newton putting the stub of pencil against his eye to see what it did to this colour spectrum. It makes that seem quite.
I mean, at least he does it to himself, though. I mean, he doesn't do it to some poor patient he's looking after.
And he needs them as these fellow medical students to help him do this, and of course they're doing this without the hospital's knowledge.
They're breaking into this very gloomy looking disused ward,
huge disused sort of mothballed ward
full of those big sheets of plastic all over the place.
That's right. And
huge windows and Gothic architecture.
Yeah, massive kind of Art Deco-y kind of turn of the century looking place. Yeah,
and they all do it apart from Oliver Platt.
Why is he there?
Flatliners, I suppose.
What's he got to hide?
Or Bratliners, of course. This is a kind of Brat Pack movie or an attempt at one.
It is. It's basically St. Elmo's Fire if they were all
medical students
investigating whether or not God exists.
Yeah.
So they all do it basically, apart from Platt. They all go under and then get shacked. And there's very tense scenes where they're trying to bring back Julia Roberts.
And they find and they kind of get involved in the sort of bidding war, don't they? Where sort of almost Top Gun like bravado, where I'm going to go under for 5 minutes, I'm going to go under for 8 hours, and they all suddenly and completely unconvincingly decide that they want to have a go at this death lark too, and they have this. They all have an out-of-body experience. They all sort of like.
Well, I'm not sure they do they? Kiefer Sutherland sort of goes back to the past, doesn't he? And he's running through a field.
Oh yeah, that's right. With streamers, which everybody did.
No, of course.
I used to run with my two mates. We'd run through a field with streamers. His image is like the old Walker's Crisps advert, isn't it?
It's a finger of fudge, isn't it?
A dog running with him.
Julia Roberts is seeing her dad when she was a child.
Yeah,
as a sort of flashback. I think,
but it feels very real to them, doesn't it?
Kevin Bacon
more
is
than just
sort of
a
mountain. And Billy Baldwin has a sort of sexy death dream, doesn't he?
He does. It's all bras and stockings and boobs and bums.
Yeah, it's a bit like the Baby Hills show. Except there's no little bald man
it's a sort of meaningless collage, montage of these things floating by. He doesn't have any he doesn't have any interaction with them. No, just sees them. I mean, that's just like thumbing through his porn collection, essentially.
But the film doesn't reach any conclusion as to whether these are just hallucinations or if there is an afterlife or anything.
Presumably, the weird thing is that the whole idea is Nelson is doing this as proof that there is an afterlife, and it doesn't prove anything because there's no way they have of recording this. Unlike the similar film, the Christopher Walken
Brainstorm.
Is it Christopher Walken?
Christopher Walken, not with Natalie Wood.
Natalie Wood, yeah, Brainstorm. And where at least there is a recording somehow of this experience, whereas there isn't here. There's no proof.
What happens in Brainstorm is that they have a way of recording thoughts, and a guy's on the machine and has a heart attack and dies.
Yes.
Which is how they get to go. Which a similar thing happened in real life. They had a guy hooked up an EEG for tests, and he had a heart attack, and that's how they were able to discover that there's still electrical activity in your brain as you're dying and after you're dead, which presumably is what the whole tunnel of light thing is.
Right.
I'm guessing, but this film reaches absolutely no conclusions whatsoever. Whether there's a God or there's a heaven or there's a hell.
But what happens is there is the idea that they've somehow activated in some genuine physical emanation of their sins, their guilt, the kind of punishment, their misdeeds come back to actually haunt them and punish them in some way. So,
does this happen to everyone who has a
just to Kiefer Sutherland for some reason. He's the only one who has physical, and it's left open whether they're self-inflicted. It's entirely possible. They can be so,
because he's really buggered up his face, hasn't he? I mean,
really badly, yes. So there's this idea that Kiefer Sutherland is actually he's tormented by a child in his vision. He's this child the first thing it does, in a very classic Gothic way, is it knees him in the bollocks.
I found it slightly irksome that Keith Sutherland and Kevin Bacon have basically got the same misdeed, haven't they?
Yeah.
They both bullied someone.
Yes. Well, it's all childhood. There's a kind of obsession with childhood in this. The only
There's
person
nothing that no one's done last week.
The only person who's got a sort of adult misdeed is William Baldwin, who is haunted. We'll come to this later. It makes it very 90s, but he's haunted by the various women that he's used and abused.
There's a very odd sequence where he's sort of punished by having women just wanting to use him sexually.
Yes, I know. And he was meant to find this upsetting.
As if that's not the dream of most men.
I think he gets off lightly. I mean, some reason he recoils in horror at these suggestions.
Yeah, his fiancée dumps him, and that's the end of that, really.
Yes, I know. But then he should have thought, well, I've got all these out here. What do I... I mean, if we were to believe he's as shallow a character as they're suggesting, then I don't see this would be any harm to him.
No, that's right. It's very, very strange, isn't it?
So,
but
Kiefer Sutherland, we discover, is particularly haunted by this child because it was a child that he feels he was responsible. He was a child that
he was responsible for this child's death. He threw a stone at this child. He threw a stone at
this child. It caused the child to lose its balance in a tree. They were tormenting it at the top of this tree, and he fell to his death.
Crippled the dog.
And crippled the dog, falling on the dog, killing it, crippling it, and Kiefer Sutherland has, despite this, somehow managed to become a medical student.
Well, I think the idea is that he was sort of sent to reform school or something like this, but cleaned his act up. Yeah. And I guess if he was only a kid when he did it, it would have been, what do they call it, that locked the file.
Oh yeah,
that's what they do, don't they?
And he realises they all realise they have to come to terms.
Well, Julia Roberts
doesn't atone for their past sins.
Julia Roberts doesn't have a sin, does she? Her thing is that her dad, who's in the army, comes back from war.
Well, she surprised him, didn't she? She went in when she was not told to, and she
opens the bathroom door, and he's in there. Spoilers, shooting up morphine, and then he kills himself because presumably he's embarrassed or shocked or horrified that she's
found him. That's the idea.
So she blames herself for this, but it's not really her fault, is it? She's a little kid and opens a door.
So there's that.
We can find out Oliver Platt's
almost
sin.
Exactly the same sin as you say with Kevin Bacon, is that he tormented somebody.
Yeah, it's a little girl
he finds her in adulthood, and he goes and apologises to her.
That clears it all up.
And William Baldwin just loses his fiancée, which as you say, it's just don't seem too much of a punishment, essentially. He doesn't seem that bothered about her.
And at the end, Keith Sutherland, because he's got the most serious sin, he's the one who you think's not going to survive. He has to put himself under, die again, and
to comfort. Even though the others managed to, he has to do that because the person he
actually kills him.
Yeah, but this doesn't make any sense because Julia Roberts manages to see her father. And she doesn't put herself back under to do that.
No, you're right.
Why isn't he able to just hang about until the vision turns up again?
I guess because it's the most serious.
Yeah,
sick.
That'll do.
I guess.
There's no other reason for that. And he really puts himself on. He's under for about 12 minutes or something.
Yeah,
go crazy like that.
I'm pretty sure brain death.
But they managed to get him back, and he's atoned, and it's all right. And the kid that he murdered.
Forgives him.
Smiles at him. Forgives him not by smiling, going, "You're okay, kid."
Yeah.
And then
guess that makes us even. Yeah. Even though you're not really dead, you're sort of just symbolically dead in a dream.
So and then that's it. Yeah, and God knows what they do. God knows what they do with this research. Or
well,
they manages to
really. Can you imagine the paper they would write on this?
They keep talking about how it's going to make his name, that it's his magnificent bit of research. They're all jealous because they want to be on it. He's got 60 minutes. It's going to be this great breakthrough, and there's no real suggestion of how on earth this is going to translate into anything other than them getting struck off.
Can you imagine publishing a paper that's... then I see this little kid and he kicks me in the balls. I mean, one very silly thing about this film, and I can see why is that you have to believe that a small child is beating up grown man.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a scrawny little kid. He's like 7 years old or something.
And really badly beating him up,
putting him in hospital.
Like a pick shaft and putting him in hospital and smelling a screwdriver. And,
well, in real life, obviously, someone would just cave his head in with one punch, wouldn't he?
Yes. So, general thoughts.
Well, okay. Joel Schumacher. I quite like some of Joel Schumacher's films. The Falling Down. It's a very good film. I think I like
great
that.
Film.
I even quite like the Batman and Robin. It's good fun.
I haven't seen Batman and Robin. Is that the one with?
It's very silly. Batman
is that the Ben Affleck one?
No.
It's way before then.
George Clooney.
Clooney, right? Okay. Yeah.
But he started out as a costume designer. Joel Schumacher,
yes,
very flamboyant man in his, and you can tell because most of his films are over designed.
This film is insanely over designed. The hospital is
this huge Gothic mausoleum.
Massive. Now I don't know much about the American health system, and I know that all hospitals have to have some wards mothballed. They kind of have to have it.
That's the way it works.
But the place that they've got sort of doesn't. It's not really clear whether it's mothballed or whether it's being reconstructed. It's massive. It's absolutely massive. This is as big as most sort of This is like a whole wing. Of a hospital, and they've got a foyer which for some reason has got a sort of half sunken, huge like something out of Thessalonia or something. This huge half-sunken bronze.
But it's all like this. I mean, Keith Sutherland's apartment is this massive, Gothic white apartment.
He's got nothing in it apart from a desk and a bed.
And he's a medical student.
Yeah, I know.
Presumably, he hasn't got much money.
No, it's absolutely enormous and really crazy over design of this.
But and the case with the costumes as well. Everybody is in these white coats and horn-rimmed glasses, and they all look like they're sort of cosplaying. Students, don't they?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, as I say, Oliver Platt wears a bow tie. That's kind of all you need to know about it.
Well, I made note of the over-designed sort of 90s cliches that were in this. Lots of neon.
Yes.
Fires in sort of braziers.
People
are constantly walking by.
Steam escaping constantly from some pipe or other. And sort of, it's kind of, I'd attempt to suggest it's sort of hell, isn't there? There's a kind of...
lots of
not
dry
very
ice,
subtle attempt.
Dry ice, lots of graffiti everywhere.
There's
more graffiti in this film than pretty much any other film I've seen. I think lots of rainy streets reflecting neon lights, blue light all over the place. And indeed red light as well. Subway train screeching. And sudden rock music.
Yes. Constantly. So, any general thoughts beyond that?
I quite enjoyed it. I think you said that all Joel Schumacher's films have a basic sort of...
It's got a plimsoll line of entertainment. And he's never going to allow it to sort of fall below the danger level. It's going to... however silly and stupid and sort of... So, I mean, let's be clear about this. This film is sort of terrible, but I did actually find it entertaining. Of all the films we've watched so far, this is the one I found least difficult to deal with. I knew it was terrible, but it kind of flew by for me.
I go along with that.
And it's because it's sort of like a bad. It's like a bad episode of the Twilight Zone crossed with Nightmare on Elm Street. I think is what it's sort of. It's because there's a strong, as we've in common with a lot of Rod Serling stuff. There's a sort of strong, sort of biblical element to it, isn't there?
What lets it down, I think, is there's a sort of paucity of imagination as to what they see when they
really is.
Die,
Yeah, very
cliches. Really.
And their sins.
Yeah,
which are very very dull. There is.
Well, two of them have basically got the same one.
Same thing. Yeah, and why hasn't Oliver Platt got one? I think it is kind of obvious that that Kiefer Sutherland's going to have to put himself under on his own in the end. That sort of inevitable conclusion. But it's silly, but it's quite fun. I think You know, I can understand why it did well. I don't think it has.
It is tense when they're dead and they're trying to bring them back to life. You also go, go on. I mean, you didn't like it, did you, Murray?
I hated it.
Yeah.
I thought it was the most tedious thing I had to watch. It as in contrast to you, I thought it dragged.
Yeah, I can't lie about my own experiences of watching it. I wish I could pretend that I was, that I found Henry and June more elevating. But I didn't. There's the slockiness of this and its corniness. It's all those things. It's terrible. It's completely unconvincing that anybody would embark on this venture to start with. It's completely unconvincing that Kiefer Sutherland wants to do this. It's even more unconvincing that he manages to persuade other people and that they're gunning to do it and they're falling over each other to go under for longer. To be dead for longer.
Vegetable.
It's insane. Nobody would want to do this. No one. It's insane.
Also, sorry. Just bits that I wanted to pick out.
Yeah.
Julia Roberts comforting that poor old woman who's dying.
Oh yes.
She comes back to her to say, "I wanted to tell her that it's all fate. Death is terrible."
The voice is on time. Thanks a bunch.
So there's the idea of two people who get converted by their experience. Really, that's sort of like Kevin Bacon's character is very. He's an atheist. The atheist they refer to. That really does date it enormously. You see very much that the early 90s was a very different world.
Yes.
Still,
you're right.
It's very religious.
These days you'd have the religious person.
Yeah, the religious person. Those days it was the atheist. So
which everyone keeps bringing up.
Yeah, they do.
He's got two heads
because it was unusual. It was fairly unusual.
In a mainstream Hollywood film,
it was unusual. It was unusual. It was unusual. Full stop. It really was. I mean, I remember. It was. Most people would say, "Well, I believe there's something out there." They really did. Yeah, they were really lukewarm. Most people were basically Anglicans, whether they were actually Anglicans or not. They had that level of fervour. But
fervour and Anglican don't really go in the same.
Well, exactly. They were kind of like, I think there's probably something out there that's sort of. I think of it as kind of nice, warm, sort of beneficent. They wouldn't use that word.
Sleeper. I think there's something out there. Yeah, unfortunately for us, it's the government.
So it was an unusual position to take, or to take publicly.
Although it's not like he starts going to church or anything, Kevin Bacon. No. He just has this sort of warm feeling that, that there's something benevolent.
Julia Roberts, who believes there is something benevolent, when she has her out of life experience, she comes back immediately convinced it's horrible and dark, and and that she's been comforting people on a false premise, and she's very bitter about it. But I'm just trying to think about all the sort of general thoughts. It's definitely, it's weird, isn't it? It's kind of it feels very out of date even for 1990. The kind of film that they're doing this. I mean, it does feel very much like an inflated Twilight Zone episode, doesn't it?
It's interesting, isn't it? What's the film Coma? You remember that film?
Yeah, but that's a long time before.
No,
it's
I
like
think there was
late
something
70s.
a bit 70s TV movie about Flatliners,
Michael Douglas was Coma, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So he produced this?
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if there's a connection. I mean, did Douglas produce Coma?
I don't know, actually. I have to look that up.
Yeah.
It's... the idea of this is a film where there's an intersection between religion and science, isn't there, really? Which is the same with Brainstorm and I guess something like Altered States. Really. It's about science meeting mysticism.
Yes.
And that's a really dated concept now, isn't it? Nobody would ever make a film where that was a theme these days, would they?
No.
Because nobody really believes in God these days, do they?
I mean, what about the actual cast and their performances? What do you think? I don't know. The other thing that dates it, of course, is that everyone in this film is pretty and young and. Oh, they keep going about Julia Roberts being beautiful. I mean, that's mentioned several times.
Yeah. Kevin Bacon, who's 10 years older than everybody else.
Yeah, and you kind of notice it. I mean, but Kevin Bacon's something. I tell you what, I was surprised by. I didn't rate when I was young Kiefer Sutherland, but watching this again, I thought, no, he's very good.
No, he's very good.
I think he's a very good actor.
He's an excellent actor,
and he does a very does his darndest to sell this film, I think.
And he's playing a character who doesn't really make much sense.
No, I know, but he really, when he's kind of coming apart,
he's going, Ollie, Oxenfree.
Yeah, I think he does it really well. I think he does it very, very well indeed. And you've got to go, he's not just because you're your dad's son. He's actually,
he's good.
Actually is good.
Bacon's good.
Kicked in the bollocks very well.
No, he's believable. He's sort of getting beaten up by an imaginary child.
I know. It's a definite sort of brownie points for Kiefer Sutherland in this, I think.
He's good. I think Bacon's good. He's dependable, I think.
Oliver Platt. Why is he there? Just comic relief, I guess. Like vaguely comic relief. He's not really given much to do at all.
I suppose he's meant to be the audience insert, is he? And sort of standing around going, "Why are you doing that? That's crazy." Things like
William
that.
Baldwin's pretty thin. Yeah, he's not
he's
much.
sort of the least.
Why are they friends with him?
I know. He's very creepy, But best bit. It's on Mummy's face.
Have you got a best bit, Murray?
I was trying to think. No.
Is there a best? It's odd because I quite like this, but I can't think of a best bit.
No, thought the best bit for me is what you said. It's. I think it's fairly breezy. I know you don't. I think it's kind of got a bottom line which is dumb entertainment, and I think it kind of succeeds on that level, which is why I think it did quite well. It's the kind of movie that you go, you think, oh, that was terrible, but I quite enjoyed it. Which I think Joel Schumacher would probably take, pocket that as a win. What do you think?
It's an odd film because it starts off with a premise and it gets hijacked on an adjunct to that premise and never actually gets back to its original point, which is finding out if life after death exists. And then it ends.
I know. Worst bit?
I think the worst bit is Billy Baldwin having loads of women coming up to him and going, "I'll love you forever."
That's really
hey, sexy, and things like that, and him being appalled by it.
That is really really bad. Saving Grace.
It looks good. The pacing's good. It's sort of. I mean, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that anybody would do this, but
no, not at all.
People's sort of reactions and the performances seem emotionally to make sense to me.
Yeah, I think the pacing's good. I think it's bottom line dumb filmmaking, and I think it is efficient on that level. Again, Murray's just shaking his head, looking. What the hell am I? I'm going to have to distance myself from these two.
Did we do best and worst performance, by the way?
Well, the best performance is Kiefer Sutherland.
He's got the hardest role to do.
And the worst performance is William Baldwin. Really, I'd say not necessarily his fault. He's just not given much to work with, really. But he's kind of he is the Zeppo of this outfit. And but
caught out having the tapes and she's leaving and said it's not what you think.
Oh yeah.
Well, what else is it?
I was recording myself making love with these other women because.
Films on a similar subject.
Well, there's Brainstorm, of course.
Yeah.
Which isn't a very good film. Natalie Wood's last film, wasn't it, I think?
Yeah. No, it's not very good.
I think she died before they finished filming it, and then they had to bring in her sister for long shots or something like that.
I had notes on this, which I've mislaid, and I did think of a film that was similar, and it's kind of absolutely vanished from my...
But there won't. It's such a weird premise that there's not a huge number of films on the same premise.
Well, I guess the thing that it's most close to spiritually is Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh, I suppose so. Yeah. The sort of dreams and reality.
Yeah. And obviously, it isn't anywhere near as good as Nightmare on Elm Street.
No, it's not.
No, it's not in the same league. It's not as imaginative, not as funny, not as gripping. Henry, my eldest lad, he watched Nightmare on Elm Street again recently. He said it's really good. I said, yeah, it is.
Yeah, I'll tell
Yeah. It's a fun film. What makes this a rotten 90s film?
Well, you've got a very young, good-looking cast who are not very convincingly playing a sort of ragtag bunch of sort of students. Really, nobody's ugly. It's the same as every other. It's Top Gun. Everyone in Top Gun's good-looking, you know, and young,
that's true,
and sexy.
Well, Oliver Platt's not especially good-looking, but he's not especially not good-looking either.
No, he's hardly.
But that's how you know he's the comic relief, because
exactly.
he's not handsome or beautiful.
And they're all impeccably dressed, and they all seem to be wearing glasses, as if to suggest that if you're a studious medical student, that's what you have to do.
Does Kiefer Sutherland wear glasses?
Yeah, there's a few shots of him wearing lenses.
Does Kevin Bacon wear glasses in it?
Can't remember. I wouldn't be that surprised.
Oh no, because he's the maverick, you see. So he doesn't need spectacles.
That's the other thing that makes it run that is there's a maverick in it.
Yeah. So I think what
He
makes
escapes
this
from his room via absence.
Yeah, he's abseiling.
that's
from
right.
the
Why?
abandoned building he lives in.
Why is he escaping his university room for abseiling out of it? Just walk out.
Because he's a maverick, so he lives in a disused factory.
So maverick that he finds it necessary to exit through through the window rather than the door like every other chump.
He also appears to drive a sort of jeep off of MASH or something like that.
Yeah, that's right. Well, maybe he has a fantasy about being a medical orderly in the Korean War. He's just going to dress like Klinger as well, So I think what makes this a 90s film. First thing I should say, it's not really a 90s film. I mean, the first thing I think spiritually about this is that it's really an 80s film that hasn't recognised that because it's 1990 it came out. So it must have been planned, possibly filmed before editing, in the actual 80s. So it's really an 80s film that doesn't recognise it's 90s yet.
Yeah.
But there were some things that the main thing is it's brown. I remember Phil Reeves saying this years ago. He said that he said, why did everybody, when they were setting anything in the past in the 90s, or, like Miller's Crossing, he said they'd all decided it was brown. Bullets Over Broadway, everything, all the whole of the past was brown in 90s movies. And I didn't realise it was because the present was brown too. I mean, this film is enormously brown. It's like almost sepia. And the other thing is the sexual politics again. It's that new man thing, that the William Baldwin character, that he's meant to be somehow cut to the quick by the women behaving towards him as he has towards them, and that's sort of it's kind of that kind of new man fantasy.
Also, there's one character who's obsessed with sex,
early 90s.
and nobody else seems very interested in sex at all.
They don't have any interest in it whatsoever. You kind of presumably it's hinted that possibly Oliver Platt's character, is homosexual. It's vaguely hinted, but only just the absence of any kind of any other kind of mention of sex.
But there's a lot of stuff about how beautiful Julia Roberts. No one of them seem that interested in Julia Roberts.
Yeah.
I mean,
no, not really.
Bacon sleeps with her, but he doesn't seem to be head over heels in love with her.
Suddenly, yes. You see them in bed together somehow, slightly unconvincingly. Yeah. So that's very weird.
And is it hinted that she's had a sort of previous thing with Kiefer Sutherland? Do you think I sort of slightly picked up on that and it all went sour or something like that?
Well, this was just the rule of sort of Brat Pack movies, wasn't it? There's a suggestion that there's kind of been a kind of internecine,
I mean, that's what
really
dates it. It's basically a Brat Pack movie. It's basically St. Elmo's Fire or Pretty in Pink or something like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what it is.
With death, with a discussion of the afterlife.
Yeah. On top.
Mortality. So, marks out of 10.
I'm going to give this, I think, a 6 because it's, oddly enough, you said it's the worst film we've seen so far, but sort of the most enjoyable in a way.
Yeah, I agree. I enjoyed this far more than anything else we've watched.
I liked it more than When Harry Met Sally. I liked it more than Henry and June.
Oh, Sleepless in Seattle, you mean?
Oh, sorry. I liked it more than Sleepless in Seattle. I liked it more than Henry and June. I liked it more than... What else have we seen?
I can't remember now. My brain's deliberately blotting them out.
But it's...
So we've had some hard times.
We've
done the hard yards.
I quite enjoyed it. I think Marie feels the opposite.
Well, for that reason, I'm going to give it a 6, just to spite it. Yes. It will. You will waste your time watching this movie, but you won't feel that aggrieved by wasting it.
I stopped halfway through the movie to do my laundry. That's how dull I found it.
Are you genuinely telling me that you found Henry and June less of a trial than this?
Well, Henry and June looked nice. The cinematography of it was interesting.
Yes.
This one, once I got over the gothicness of it, it just made me question why it was so impractical.
No, it's insane.
Yeah,
the set design is great, kind of crazy. But actually, I do find that quite interesting.
I mean,
defibrillating someone once they're brain dead, or even after their heart has stopped, is not going to bring them back.
Oh yeah. I mean, obviously it's ridiculous.
Yeah. They'd all be vegetables.
That should be the last scene.
Yeah, just all of them.
How'd they be able to tell?
Yeah.
So
it is quite funny that there's several different settings to this film, but every part of this film is like a gothic mausoleum.
Yeah.
All the apartments.
I know.
Everywhere.
So one word. Describe
was
it.
It meant to be post-apocalyptic or something? I don't know what was going on.
No, it's just meant to be contemporary. It's just
weird cultish things going on.
Just meant to be contemporary. That's all. That's how Joel Schumacher saw the world.
Wow.
Well, he's basically a sort of rock video director, isn't he?
Yes.
Really,
Everything
he does looks like a very long,
very meatloaf.
rock video, basically, which is all right, you know.
Made the Phantom of the Paradise seem like a John Cassavetes movie.
I don't know. I think the word I'd use for this is silly. Really silly.
Oh, you rotter! That was exactly the same word I was going to use as well. Yes, it's silly, but
silly fun. Really.
Yeah. Murray.
Drudgery.
Silly fun drudgery.
Well, that wraps it up. Silly fun drudgery. That is Flatliners
from 1990.
And thank you, and join us again next week for another Rotten 90s Movies.